And welcome to a podcast about the room, a very important room, a room that saved a man's life. This is the Vinyl Chamber podcast. My name is Steph from Sydney, Australia, and from the Vinyl Chamber itself in Kent, England, is my co-host Matt. How are you today, Matt?
I'm really well, thank you, Steph. It's beautiful autumnal, early morning sunshine here in the UK. And this is, as you rightly say, is the said room, which is adorned by every single number one vinyl record, number one in the UK, that is, between 1952 and 1996. I happen to be sitting in the room that houses the 1960 and 1970s records, and you and I, mates of long standing, are going to be selecting different years, aren't we, and talking through the stories behind the tracks.
So in fact, I said that this was a podcast about a room. You're saying that that's something of a misnomer. The collection is so vast that it's spread across a number of chambers. Is that right?
Well, it is, but this is the really special one. This is the one where it all started, and this is the one that kind of completed the project from the first two decades. So I started in the 60s, then did the 1970s. I collected all these records, and then I went back in time to the 50s. Of course, the chart started in 1952, and after doing that, I went forward into the 80s. But this particular room around me, where all these beautiful records, and I think they are beautiful, actually. I think they're works of art, surround me. This is behind me, 1960s. In front of me is 1970s. And we start with Emil Ford and the Checkmates to my right with What Do You Want to Make Those Eyes at Me For? And we end, again, down as I look to my right with Pink Floyd and Another Brick in the Wall, which ends the that's the scope of this particular vinyl chamber. So we've got the whole kind of gamut, really, of British musicals. Not just British records, obviously, but this is based on the UK charts, which I think were very much a part of our, well, they were the soundtrack to our lives growing up, no matter part of them, and they're very, very special to me for a number of reasons, which will maybe become apparent in future episodes. But I don't think it's an exaggeration to say the collection saved my life, and we'll be telling listeners more about that in episodes to come.
Well, Matt, I've known you for over 40 years, and you've never been somebody with a tendency towards hyperbole, so I accept your word on that. So what we decided to do then is each episode is to be devoted to a particular year, and for no particular reason, you and I elected to begin with 1976. This is a year where you and I were both in our penultimate year at primary school. I grew up in England then. And it was the year of the long hot summer. James Callaghan became the UK Prime Minister. Jimmy Carter, in fact, the President-elect of the US. And it was a year that punk made an expletive-ridden entrance into tea-time living rooms at the expense of Bill Grundy's career. And in the mainstream, as we will shortly discuss, this was ABBA's year.
Yes, we did choose it randomly, but I think there's a bit more to it, that because it's 76 is often cited by, for want of a better word, musicologists and students of music as the nadir, the low point of music. And I remember a documentary a few years ago where somebody said the charts in 1976 were full of music for 10-year-olds. I think they were referring to things like Brotherhood of Man and the Wurzels, Combine Harvester, songs we'll come to. Of course, we were 10 in 1976, which is kind of quite interesting. So it's seen as a year that kind of suggested things were ripe for change, which of course was where punk and new wave were going to come in. And if we look at the records of 1976, we will find that. But I think you and I know that even records that we wouldn't necessarily profess to like, we can usually find good things in them, whether it's an interesting chord change, some harmony, and a background story. And that's what this podcast is about. It's pretty non-judgmental, I think, really, this story. I mean, it's fashionable to slate certain records, but you and I, we're suckers for a good key change, a good chord change, a bit of harmony, and those sort of hidden gems can frequently be found in even the strangest places, should we say.
All right, well, as Big Ben chimed New Year's Eve in 1975, it was actually Bohemian Rhapsody, which was number one. That was technically the first number one of 1976. It had been number one for 5 weeks or so, I think.
Nine, I think. 8 or 9, I think. 8 or 9.
In total, but I think it.
I see what you mean, yeah.
It became number one in, I think, the last or middle of November or something.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And but I don't know about you. I don't really, in my mind, regard Bohemian Rhapsody as a 1976 number one. I see that as a 1975 or 1991, actually, in fact, number one. And to my mind, if it's all right with you, I think the first bona fide 1976 number one would be this one.
Here it is, Steph. It's on that beautiful... It was before the Epic label turned orange. The Epic label was kind of yellow from the late 60s into the mid-70s, and bands like the Isley Brothers, the Zombies were on Epic in the later days, Time of the Season, things like that. Argent, who came from the Zombies. But it was really this song really set ABBA on their way. I mean, after winning the Eurovision Song Contest in '74 from Brighton with the brilliant power pop classic Waterloo, they had a couple of distinctly average singles, I think. I mean, the terrible Ring Ring and the possibly even worse I Do. I don't know how many times they said that, but it was far too many. And then the excellent SOS in the autumn of '75 really saved ABBA, put them back on track. I mean, that was SOS, a quality song. And then this one at the start of '76, and of course for the real anoraks and nerds out there, an interesting bit of pop trivia is that it's the first time a song had the title of a lyric which appeared in the previous number one, i.e. Mamma Mia, which of course, as everyone will know, was a line in Bohemian Rhapsody, Mamma Mia, Mamma Mia, da, 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 da. And I don't think that's ever been repeated, just a quirk of history there. And it was written at the home of Agneta Folstog and Bjorn Ulvaeus, and I mean, instrumentally, it's certainly interesting to us. And it kind of rests on that start step of that D major to D augmented, that you know, it's a lovely little very kind of instrumental clockwork sound, and actually reminds me, the opening chords for that D to augmented reminds me of Split Ends, I Got You, you know, and then there's that lovely followed by a lovely clean guitar hook played by session musician Jan Schaffer. And now I play it actually reminds me of the intro to Up the Junction by Squeeze, so it's kind of a little bit of thing. And you know, I can definitely hear a clear Beatles influence in ABBA's work around this time, in the harmonic structure of the song, And I know both Benny and Bjorn have kind of paid tribute to the the kind of the Beatles as an influence on their work. And I mean, Waterloo, the Beatles, you know, it very much comes through on that. And also, I wonder if the Boomtown Rats had that intro on their mind when they wrote Like Clockwork, because there's that, you know, there's a definite similarity there. And as a bass player, I've long admired the work of ABBA bassist Rutger Gunnarsson. We'll come to him later, but I think I'm pretty sure on this one the bassist is Mike Watson. But you know, there's some great musicianship on ABBA's records, and the production is crystal clear. I mean, I think we've had this debate before, and I think you might hold a slightly different view. But when I was a kid, at this stage, ABBA were not seen as, you know, ABBA were the songs your sisters liked. You know, it was almost music for, we talked about music for 10-year-olds. Well, specifically, ABBA was always seen as music for 10-year-old girls. If you
I think when they started, so 74, when they won the Eurovision Song Contest, and then 75, 76. But I think what happened then is they got so successful that it almost became that sort of classic cycle where it just wasn't cool to like ABBA anymore, and that really afflicted them, I think, until their music was revisited in the 90s. I think it was in the Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. I can't remember exactly where it was, but I remember going to a party in the 80s and asking for ABBA because, I don't know, I just thought it was a provocative thing to do. I don't think I particularly wanted to hear it at that time, and the DJ was so disgusted, he actually found the record and he threw it at me. He said, "You want ABBA? Can you fucking have it?" You know what I mean? And well,
there you go.
Yeah, so there's a story. Anyway, but so I think that they kind of tripped over their own success there. I don't know, but that's how I remember it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's right, and I think there was this kind of revisiting ABBA and this kind of reappraisal of their work. And now, as a 10-year-old, I'd have run a mile if you said, even though I bought ABBA Waterloo, one of the very first singles I bought, not the first, but not one of the first singles I ever bought. But I have no such hang-ups now about saying I love ABBA. I think they're musically superb, their harmonies are superb, and Mamma Mia was the one that really launched the really superstardom phase of their career, or set them on the road to superstardom. And of course, 76 was a fantastic year for ABBA as we come. So what a great start to our look at the year, Steph.
All right, well, let's crack on then, and to the next one is this.
In the beginning, then so should it end. Don't let a lover become just a friend. Oh no, I made you a promise I vowed I would keep. The candles still burning, the river runs deep. My love, didn't you know? Didn't you feel? Couldn't you tell that it was real? Couldn't you tell that? Day
Well, interesting, Steph. This is, I mean, because all my singles are framed. I mean, I certainly can't get it out, but I mean, this is a very rare picture sleeve. And picture sleeves were not really a thing. I mean, 76. I mean, I think if I can count on one hand the amount of picture sleeves in this collection. They started to get a bit more common around when sort of on the back of the new wave before they became sort of de rigueur in the sort of 80s. But this is actually on the Bell label, which was
the Wombles were on that.
They're on CBS. What was on CBS? But there's some unspeakable people on Bell.
Tony Orlando and Dawn were on Bell.
Yeah, David Cassidy was on Bell. Early Sweet was on Bell before they moved to RCA. I'm pretty sure.
Big label.
It was a big label, and they made sort of glam rock. But obviously the key person when we talk about Stick is Midge Ure, and we'll come to him. But we have to start with the songwriters, who were Bill Martin and Phil Coulter, a Scotsman and an Irishman, who ironically wrote what I believe is the greatest football anthem ever. And we do, of course, we both love our football, and we love our football anthems. This is Back Home, which was number one. I'm just looking up here on the Powder Blue Pie label, just up to my right there. They wrote Back Home. And of course they were tunesmiths and really understood the songwriting craft. And that number one hits with Puppet on a String by Sandy Shaw, which also won the Eurovision Song Contest in '67, and then Congratulations by Cliff Richards. Which came second in the following year. Now, Slick were a Scottish band. They formed in Glasgow, and they grew out of a hard rock band called Salvation. And I know, but going on to Forever and Ever, Steph, this is far more interesting musically than I think perhaps it's given credit for at the time. And as you say, you and I both love a good chord sequence. There's interesting elements to these songs which made it stand apart from the mainstream, like almost like the ethereal, sinister organ at the start. There's elements of classic glam rock in there, but also some interesting structure to the song, and I think it's excellent.
Yeah, and what I think we've talked about this before, and I never tire of making this observation about this particular song, is that the intro, the fugue, and the beginning of it, the verse, sounds like it could have been on an Emerson, Lake and Palmer album.
Yeah.
And then the chorus just smacks of Bay City Rollers.
The Rollers, yeah.
Biggest band on the planet at the time. Well, certainly the year before they were. It's this, and the thing is, I mean, there's no connection between this and what Midge Ure did later, but what this has got in common with Vienna, which I think got to number 2 or number 1 in 1981.
Number two,
yeah. Is that it's the least likely song to be released as a single in terms of its structure. I mean, okay, the chorus of this one I think is very approachable, but to begin a song like this with a fugue, and I just think that really took some imagination, and I'm really glad that they, perhaps in the 70s they could get away with it, where they wouldn't maybe later, but that's what I really like about this, is that the sort of juxtaposition of these two very different styles that blend into the one song, and it just works.
Yeah, let's give a shout out. So I think almost certainly that was played. The organ sound was played by Billy McIsaac, a former telephone engineer. And then there's that chiming of a bell, which is very glam rock. You're absolutely right. I mean, I think that's absolutely spot on. The kind of fusion of sort of prog rock and glam, and almost that low murmur of a Buddhist chant. And people listening to it think, what is going on here? Frankly, all very unusual. And out of this low chant emerges Midge Ure's voice, sort of rising up from the flames. It's really weird. And then there's a couple of interesting chord changes. A lovely chord change on 47 seconds, as Coulter and Martin sort of rack up the tension. It really takes it out of the ordinary, some unusual chords. And of course, but funny enough, the critics at the time wrote off this song as eminently disposable and kind of formulaic. I think the critics at the time were totally wrong. I don't think it's formulaic at all. But almost as a way of sticking two fingers up to said critics, Martin and Coulter then wrote a follow-up for Slick called Requiem, which is genuinely unusual and complicated, but in my opinion, no less brilliant for it. And more monk chanting and more haunting keyboard work by Billy McIsaac. And I urge people to listen to check out the follow-up Requiem if they haven't heard it. But we can't really talk about Slick without following up with Midge-Ure, can we, Steph? I know you've been in. I've got a great record to refer to, but I know you're interested in his life after Slick, aren't you?
Well, what interests me about Midge-Ure is just the variety of the work that he did. I mean, this was, you alluded to earlier, this wasn't the first band he was in. I think it's probably the first band he had any success with. But what came after this is the Rich Kids, which I think you'll come to in a moment. And then, concurrently with that, he got a gig. This is the most unlikely job. He got a gig as the touring guitarist for Thin Lizzy.
Yeah.
And then came in the early 80s came Visage, and then came Ultravox, and then his solo career. And somewhere amongst all that, he found time to put energy into, and primarily was the primary songwriter for the Band-Aid single. So this was a very talented and energetic man that was that really permeated the scene at the time. And I find that fascinating, actually. And I've heard him interviewed, and he comes across as a decent fellow, actually.
Do you know where the Midge name comes from?
Well, isn't it his name in reverse?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Jim, Midge. Yeah, absolutely right. But you mentioned the Rich Kids, and I mean, this is the kind of variance of Midge-Ure's career. First of all, Slick came right at the very end of glam rock, just as things were about to change, and then they find themselves, punk came along and kind of blew it all away. And they did briefly try and reinvent themselves as a band called PVC2 with little or no success. But Midge-Ure wasn't hanging about, and he joined the Rich Kids. And there's a great song, I think it's a wonderful overlooked punk new wave classic called Ghosts of Princes in Towers, another record I have in my collection on EMI. It's worth a few quid now, actually. I mean, not massive, but it's worth a few quid. Ghosts of Princes in Towers, wonderful song. And as you've rightly, very eloquently outlined there, Steph, Midge-Ure has gone on to a fantastic career, but I guess it all started, to all intents and purposes, with this very interesting and I think overlooked classic, actually, Forever and Ever.
Yeah. All right, here we go. I know you've got plenty to say about this one.
Absolutely.
Right, sorry, Yes. Oh, well, there we go. I'm going to keep that in. I think this is all part of the excitement when these things happen. But we've got our mics are both now working again, and the observation I was just going to make there was that I kept that going because I wanted to capture that bass run at the end of the instrumental middle eight there. But go on. Talk about that.
I mean, you know. Just a must.
Who wrote this? I mean, this is superhuman. This.
Bob Gaudio and and his wife Judy Parker. Yeah, I mean, a much. I mean, what? I mean, almost ineffable in its beauty. This song, you know, great hooks, terrific structure, wonderful instrumentation, including, as you say, some fantastic bass playing, and it is an absolute masterclass in song structure. And from the opening bars, it's just quality with that wonderful piano played by Lee Shapiro, and the drum pattern then from Jerry Polchi, who also sings on this tune, starts off singing. Now, how good is that to sort of like to start off the song? Of course, with the great Frankie Valli does come in later. Polchi, incidentally, was briefly married to Antonio Valli, Frankie's only surviving daughter, but I think he does a great job on this. And then, of course, Frankie himself sings that soaring, almost celestial middle eight. And then, oh dear, I mean, Don Ciccone, who you know sings the second bridge. But I've got to say, Ciccone's bass playing on this is absolutely sublime, just magical. Really propels the song from the moment he enters the fray halfway through the verse. And truly world class on that little middle eight. He does that run, which I think he actually sings and plays at the same time. And we mustn't forget some great rhythm playing actually by John Paver. Some lovely, almost Van McCoy inspired rhythm playing. And what I love about this song, Steph, it's the lyrics are also really great. It's evocative of by definition, it's looking back into the past. And there's various theories about it. I mean, sometimes people have thought it was about it was originally titled December 33, or about the repeal of Prohibition. Oh. Another theory is it's about, your first encounter with a woman, which sounds a little bit more credible when you think about it. But I mean,
well, that's the kind of thing that they were singing about in the 50s, isn't it? And this is really a tribute. This is a hat tip to the 50s. This style to a lot.
I think so.
To a large extent, yeah. So I think that's a more likely theory, actually.
I think it's superb. I think it's absolutely superb. And Gaudio and Parker, as you say, brilliant songwriters. I mean, Gaudio usually wrote with his co-writer Bob Crew, and they wrote some great. Absolute belters for songs like The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore by the Walker Brothers and Silence is Golden by the Tremolos, which the Four Seasons had done before. But I never tire of hearing this song. I think it's fantastically produced. The instrumentation is out of this world. The singing is world class. And to me, it's absolutely brilliant. I know you share those thoughts as well, Steph, don't you?
Cute little song, Matt. I must admit, it's not one that you hear very much on the radio these days, or on playlists. But it's to a large extent, I think it's fair to say that's a bit underrated. That song, it's a great disco song.
Takes me straight back to my Junior 3 classroom at Our Lady of the Rosary Catholic Primary in Blackfen, Sidcup, Kent. Really caught our imagination. And it's, to me, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's underrated. I think it's a track which sets its stall out from the off. And now those organ sounds at the start, Steph, to me that's the Philly sound. That's Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff. To me, it brings back to mind two great numbers by Gamble and Huff: The 3 Degrees, When Will I See You Again, and the truly outstanding The Love I Lost by Harold Melville and the Blue Notes. And now, I think history hasn't been that kind to Tina Charles, and I think she was seen as a little bit of a kind of, a sort of, poor man's UK disco kind of queen, but she was actually an extremely accomplished session vocalist with a very, very good CV. And sounds a bit like Cilla Black to me, actually, in some places. She had a residency, a brief residency on the Two Ronnies, and interestingly, she also sang backing vocals on Steve Harley and Cockney Rebels' Sublime Come Up and See Me, Make Me Smile. Now, she also sang lead vocals on the 5,000 Volts September 1975 hit I'm on Fire, though she wasn't publicly credited. That was Luann Peter. But and of course, it isn't Gamble and Huff who wrote it, it's Jack Robinson and James Bolden. And Robinson was from Seattle, and Bolden is actually a pseudonym for David Christie, a Frenchman called Jacques Pepino. So work that one out. But I think it's a really good song, couple of good chord sequences. And if you listen to the vocal, there's actually some quite challenging parts to that, Steph. And I think it's I don't think Tina Charles perhaps got the credit she deserved on it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I remember this coming out, and I liked it then, I like it now. All right, let's move on then.
Though it hurts to go away, it's impossible to stay. But there's one thing I must say before I go. I love you.
I love you.
You know, I'll be thinking of you in most everything I do. Now the time is moving on, and I really should be gone. But you keep me hanging on for one more smile. I love you.
I love you.
All the while, with your cute little way, will you promise that you'll save your kisses for me? Save all your kisses for me. Bye bye, baby, bye bye. Don't cry, honey, don't cry. Gonna walk out the door, but I'll soon be back for more kisses for me. Save all your kisses for me. So long.
So, one thing I noticed just listening to that just then is it was probably a session player, but the bass playing is very good in that. It really carries the I love it when it comes in the second verse, and it really lifts and carries the song really well.
Yeah, interesting song, isn't it? I mean, again, probably disposed of as kind of, as that music for 10-year-olds kind of thing, but, not a bad example of songcraft. And this preceded the Baking Summer of 1976. I think, funnily enough, it takes me right back to the Saturday, 3rd of April, when they won the Eurovision Song Contest in The Hague. It was the day of a classic semi-final from Hillsborough between Manchester United and Derby, which was shown on Match of the Day that night. Funny mentioning United, because Brother the Man first bothered the charts in 1970 with United We Stand. But what I love about this, I know it's
That's a very tenuous.
that's a very, very tortuous, contrived link there, wasn't it? But a couple of things. I always listen for influence from other songs. Reminds me of another. Well, I think it's an excellent Eurovision Song Contest entry for the Britain. New Seekers, Beg, Steal and Borrow from 1972. And I can also hear the chord sequence to Amen Corner's 1969 number one, If Paradise is Half as Nice. Now, we're talking for real nerds here. The intro's a glockenspiel, and there's a big 12-string guitar comes in, playing the chords of G, G major 7, G7, then goes to C, then goes to a C minor. And it's kind of a tried and tested. But again, there's interesting little chord sequence in there. And the lead for me was Martin Lee, who actually died about 18 months ago. he was almost the epitome of the 1970s medallion man, wasn't he? You know, huge wing collars the size of Grimsby, unbuttoned shirt exposing a hairy chest, and a decent walrus moustache and a medallion. You know, he was almost like kind of the epitome, wasn't he? And of course, they were they were the ABBA setup, 2 guys, 2 women, and came up with a somewhat retrospectively embarrassing choreographed dance to accompany the song. The other writers, Steph, just for the record, Tony Hiller and Lee Sheridan, and both Tony Hiller came from a fine tradition of Jewish songwriters from London's East End, so he knew how to kind of write a song. And this was on the Pie label, and it was #1 for 6 weeks, from 27th of March to 8th of May.
Yeah. Well, it's time
Not
now.
much what you can say to that, is there? Really? I mean,
I really don't know what else to say about "Save All Your Kisses for Me," Matt. I think I think we can just leave that one on the high point that you reached there. All right.
Fair enough.
So moving on then to my favourite ABBA song.